Okay, we have reached the golden hour here on USFDons.com, and we're joined once again by USF men's basketball head coach Todd Golden. Coach, it's been a minute. Thanks for joining us today. How are we doing?
Doing great, brother. How are you?
Can't complain. Just another summer day. Hope you and the family had a safe holiday weekend.
Thank you. It was great. We got outside a little bit, got in the pool a little bit. Little man Jake was thrilled. Slept very well that night.
There you go. For those of you watching, don't forget, this is our 6th episode. So if this is your first time joining us, head to USF Dons Athletics YouTube page and check the others out. We've covered roster building, in-game strategy, and analytics, and more. Check them out. Coach, 6 episodes. I feel like we just started this yesterday, and here we are.
When it's so easy, it just rolls by. It's all good, man. This is we got a good thing going.
Yeah. Coach, we've talked about so much about this year ahead and in general pieces about your history. And one thing we actually haven't talked about that much is recent history. And by that, I mean this past season from the perspective of your first season as a head coach. Are you ready to talk about some year one impressions?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Now, I want to get technical and deep into things here. But before we get there, I'm going to start with technicals or lack thereof. Now, I've seen you get fired up. I definitely saw it on the court last year, but you weren't teed up. How deep are we going to get into your career before the first one?
It's a great question. When I was fortunate enough to get promoted, just like everybody, I have quite a few text chains, with some buddies. And, going into my first year, my buddies set the over-under at 1.5 technicals over the course of the season. So, that was in the back of my mind all year. I wanted to be at 0. And, I thought there were a couple times where I gave the refs an opportunity to bang me with one, but, I was fortunate to get out of the season with 0. So it's something that I'll always be able to kind of remember and keep on, keep in my back pocket as I move forward.
Well, the first year to remember. Let's start at the beginning, coaching-wise. When in your life did you realize that coaching was going to be it for you? It was going to be your career?
It's funny because, when I was finishing up playing in college and going to play professionally overseas, coaching wasn't something that was really at the front of my mind. Especially as I finished up playing over in Israel, the business world was something that intrigued me quite a bit. I was a business administration major at St. Mary's. I really liked the idea of sales and, revenue generation and doing things of that nature. So, I kind of wanted to prove that I could do something outside of basketball as well. And so that's, when I got into sales and marketing when I first got back to the Bay and did that for a couple years. And to be honest, it was going pretty well financially, but at the same time, I just wasn't very happy. And, their opportunity came up with Kyle over at Columbia at the time, the director of basketball operations position. This was in 2012. And it was one of those things where I started thinking, all right, if I don't try to get this opportunity now, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to get it, period. So, Megan and I, who were just dating at the time, had made the decision to pick up and move cross country to get into coaching. And honestly, within the first week of being back there, we had a great staff, wonderful student athletes in the program. After about a week, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was really happy making that move. Financially, it was a big step back from what I was doing before, but I was just a lot happier. And knock on wood, it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us could use some good sports stories right now. So I'd love it if you can share a few with us today. And let's start with this. Tell us about the time when you realized that coaching wasn't a job, but a career.
Yeah, I think, it was early on in my time at Columbia. And I took that opportunity kind of open-minded and with the intention of giving it a roll and seeing how it goes and understanding that if I didn't like it or if it wasn't working out, I felt confident that I could fall back onto my, my business experience and try to get back into something of that nature. And, through the preseason and through the first handful of games and just being on the bench and, being a part of a team and being a part of something bigger than yourself, I at that point, every Sunday, I would go in and meet one of the other staff members and we would just start statting some of the games and doing something like that. And it would take up all of our Sunday. And, I'd get in there in the morning and leave after lunchtime and walking back to our apartment, I realized this is fun. You know, I enjoyed doing this. You know, a lot of people, you know, wouldn't look at going into their office on Sunday as something that was enjoyable or something that they look forward to. But that's when I really realized, like, man, this is something that is a part of me, and I'm going to really enjoy doing it for as long as I can.
When was it in your coaching tenure that you had that first thought, you know what? I can take over a program like right now, today.
You know what? It wasn't until I got here to San Francisco, you know, but the experiences that I had before certainly prepared me for it. You know, I think one of the things that gave me the confidence when I got this opportunity is I was the director of basketball operations 2 different times. You know, I did it my first year at Columbia, and then when I got down to Auburn with Bruce, my first year I was director of operations again, and that gave me just a great understanding of how to run a program. You know, I was involved in budgeting, meals, travel, you name it, you know, from an operational standpoint. I got a great just understanding of how the program functions as a whole. And then, you know, being an assistant at Columbia for a year and then getting that opportunity again at Auburn and, you know, traveling not only domestically, but globally for recruiting, you know, just being a part of different programs. When I got back to San Francisco with Kyle, you know, after the first year and just being an associate head coach for him and really, you know, working hand in hand with him on the just everything daily within the program, that's when I started feeling pretty confident. Like, all right, if I ever get an opportunity to do this and lead on my own, I feel like I'm prepared to do it. And obviously I had 2 more years after that to really, you know, fine tune things and get a great understanding of every part of the program. But honestly, as soon as, you know, it was announced Kyle was leaving, I felt really good and confident about the opportunity to lead this program.
How did it feel to you in that moment, you know, at that first year at USF, when you realized you could do that, that you felt confident you could lead a program? What did that feel like to you?
Well, honestly, the first part of that was surrounding myself, you know, and my staff with people that I trusted and I could count on, you know, and I think that's something that, you know, behind every good or great head coach, he has a phenomenal staff. You know, we have, you know, 6 or 7 guys that are working, you know, 50 to 60 hour work weeks, you know, giving up their weekends to spend time with our players and build our program and try to, you know, reach heights that we haven't been before. And really, when I was able to bring that staff together that we talked about a couple episodes ago, that's when I was like, it took the weight of the world off my shoulders, knowing that I would be able to delegate and give guys like Kevin Hovey and Mamadou and Vinny, you know, Jonathan's a huge asset in his role, to have these guys be able to take on a lot of responsibility to allow me to focus on things that I needed to. That was really what gave me the confidence to know that we were going to be in good shape.
Well, you certainly hit the ground running this year, and we've briefly gone over, you know, when you get this job, and I want to take a deeper dive into it.
Sure.
What were you doing when the phone call came in from Joan?
It was funny. You know, transparently, I had a conversation with another institution about a week or 2 before that about an opportunity that they had. And, you know, those conversations were being had, but they had kind of calmed down. And I was actually in Arizona recruiting, looking at some kids that we wanted to bring in or, you know, thought we might for the next class. And really it was, you know, I got a call from Kyle and just, you know, hey, this is looking like it's pretty real. You know, you might want to get back here and be prepared. And so after that, within about an hour or so, heard from Joan and got on a plane and got back here, and we met that afternoon. And honestly, that first conversation with Joan was great. And, you know, I could understand from her perspective where she might be a little concerned. You know, Kyle is a very successful coach. You know, he's experienced and been around for a long time. And she had me, who I know she believed in, but, you know, I was young. I am young. I hadn't been a head coach before. And it took a lot of trust and belief on her behalf to give me this opportunity. And, you know, having that conversation, I felt great because I trusted that she did believe in me. And she thought that I could take this program and keep it on the upward trajectory that it was currently on. And so it was a really, really smooth transition. It really was. And it happened fast. It happened a lot faster than I think most people would have suspected. But, you know, that quickness and that ability to pivot our program, you know, smoothly was part of the reason why we were able to be so successful last year. You know, the guys were very comfortable with Kyle, and they were really comfortable with me, and we didn't change a whole lot. So their day-to-day didn't change, you know, much. And I think that was all a big part of why we were able to be successful on the floor and in the classroom this past year.
Absolutely. So you get the job officially, right? You get the job offer. Who's the first person you call?
besides my parents.
Well, your parents.
Yeah, no, that was honestly, that was a funny story was, that evening, whatever day it was, I was going back and forth with Joan, and, she had let me know that I was going to be the next head coach. And that before we got off the phone, I just put her on the spot. And I was like, hey, are you comfortable with me telling my parents that I'm going to be the next head coach at USF? And she said, yes, absolutely. I'm comfortable with that. And then that was the moment. And so obviously I let my parents know. And my dad, he was a basketball guy. He played freshman ball at UMass, but he kind of raised me in a basketball house. And, it was a really proud moment for me to be able to make that phone call to both of my parents. And obviously after that, just letting a lot of close friends know. And then the next day was reaching out to everybody from recruits to, obviously current players in our program, making sure everybody was comfortable. But those first few days were a whirlwind for sure.
What were your parents' reactions like when you told them?
They were on cloud nine, man. They were super excited. I think we had conversations in the past about that. That was my hope and my goal, that if that ever happened, that I'd get the opportunity, but you never know. And, things change. And, when it became reality, it was something that I think they were even a little like, whoa, this is amazing. They were super, super pleased. They're really appreciative of the university for, providing me this opportunity. And, they were proud for sure.
From USF's historical perspective, this university has a tradition of young, successful coaches. You look at Jimmy Needles, who had 3 conference titles after being named player coach at 23. Phil Woopert, 155 games, 60 straight, and a couple of titles. All these guys, 31 years old. What does that mean to you to be included in a list like that?
It's it's amazing. It's definitely an honor to be a part of a coaching fraternity like we have here at USF. And I mean, the list goes on, right? You have, Coach Jim Bravelli, who's one of the program's greatest supporters, especially emotionally. As he travels with us, he's at every game, and he's just an amazing guy that I look up to and just respect a ton. And then you have Dan Belamini. You have a bunch of guys that I could point to that have had a lot of success here. And, it's a lot of responsibility too, right? I mean, you got to be able to answer the call and answer the bell when that opportunity came. So it was an honor, but definitely, an added element of responsibility and something that I take a lot of pride in.
Now, your old head coach, Kyle Smith, said you have a quote unquote Sean McVeigh quality to you. And when you hear something like that, what does that mean to you?
That's a huge compliment, obviously. I appreciate him saying that. I think, Coach McVeigh was a young guy who I think was similar, got an opportunity at a young age based upon his reputation of being a great offensive mind in football, and got the opportunity with the Rams. And obviously he's done really, really well. And he had a great opportunity to step into with the talent on that roster and everything. But I guess what I take from that is, Kyle thought that I was a guy that had confidence in myself and, believed in what we were doing in the program, and felt like I could articulate that to our guys on a daily basis, and that I could have the ability to manage and lead with other coaches. But it's just, Sean McVeigh is probably, top 5 young coach across any platform, pro or college. And so to be able to be in the same breath as him is huge. I mean, it's just a great compliment, and it's something that I don't take lightly.
Yeah, and a deserved one at that, by the way. In baseball, they say the catchers make the best managers, right? And in basketball, there are a lot of great coaches who were walk-ons. Right. You were a walk-on who had a successful career. Do you think there's something to that?
A little bit, like you just said, I think, there different coaches, come from all different backgrounds and different experiences. But, you can see it a lot too, where there's been guys who've been great players and played at the highest of levels that it just hasn't translated to being a good coach. And I think part of why it might be kind of more of a correlation for someone that was a walk-on is you've earned what you've gotten for quite a while. I went into St. Mary's, walked on, and I wasn't promised anything from a playing perspective, so I had to kind of work my way into the rotation and work my way into, playing minutes. And that's kind of the same mentality that I took into coaching. I didn't expect to have the opportunities to coach the defense or expect to recruit internationally or do these different things. But you just work hard at it and understand that, it's process over result from that standpoint. You just do the best you can, and you're not always going to do it right, but you do it long enough, you're going to learn to do it right. And I think probably just having that understanding that things aren't always going to be easy, and you got to have some ability to adjust and pivot. And, having those qualities as a player definitely has helped me as a coach, because there's been plenty of, situations where it hasn't gone as we planned. And, a good coaching staff will be able to adjust. And I think we do a decent job at doing that.
You mentioned a couple times work ethic and long hours as part of being a part of a coaching staff. Kind of moving into to your first season in the head chair on the Hilltop, what were the hours like as a head coach as opposed to the associate head?
Honestly, not too different. I think, and that's what's great about our staff still is, I don't think guys feel like they have to work any more or any less dependent upon their role. We have guys that are really functional. We have guys that are intelligent, so they're able to be productive. And, to be honest, I'm not the type of guy that lives in the office. I live right down the street, so I can come back here whenever I want. That's helpful. But I am definitely more production over anything else. And, now in today's age, especially during with what's going on right now, we can do so much work off this thing right here, that being in the office is really important when we need to meet and be together and get on the same page. But when we're just doing our individual responsibilities, I don't expect these guys to be living in here when they can be at home with their families, or, be out recruiting or doing other things that are equally, if not more productive to our bottom line, which is winning. So, I'd say my mind is on more now as a head coach than it was before, because as an associate head coach, and Kyle gave me a lot of responsibility, but I was still pretty compartmentalized as in terms of how I went about my business. Whereas now, it could be something that I've asked Kevin to do, but I'm still worrying or thinking about whether it's done and whether it's the right way. And then, so you're constantly, you could ask my wife, she'll tell you, the Don's program is on my mind quite a bit. I'm fortunate to have her, someone who loves sports and loves being a part of the USF family as well, because she's in it with me. And, it's just part of our life, to be honest. It's part of our family. My son loves the players. He loves being around them. We had a couple guys over for dinner last night, and it's for our family to be able to provide that opportunity for him to grow up around the game and grow up around the incredible student athletes that we have, guys that I would love him to be like when he gets to be 18 to 22 years old. It's something that I cherish every day, and I simply don't take it for granted.
I wanted to ask about your family, because it looks like they're an incredible support network. I mean, I feel like your parents were flying in from Arizona for every home game.
Yeah.
What's that support network like? And then what does it mean to you to have that amount of support?
Yeah, it's everything. Like I was saying earlier, my dad's a huge basketball guy. I mean, he was coming up to most of our games the first 3 years anyways. And then as I got promoted, he was almost at every game, I'm pretty sure. And my mom's the same way. It's hard for her to be at games. She gets a little intense and gets a little, she feels like because she can't impact the result, it kind of concerns her. But, she's super supportive and just loves every part of our program. But Megan she's special. I think she was an athlete at St. Mary's as well. She was a great volleyball player, definitely the more athletic one of the two of us. And she also grew up in an Army home. She was an Army brat, so she moved around quite a bit as a young child. So that part of the life is not something that bothers her a whole lot. And again, she is a competitive person. She loves games. She loves being able to cheer for us 30 to 35 times a year. And again, because we have such great kids, like she loves being around the guys. She doesn't mind having them over and letting them play with Jake and Maddie and cooking a meal for them, or just spending time with them. So just having that support gives me the confidence that I can give my all to the program. Is the easiest way to say it. And I think the results kind of speak for themselves and the type of program that we have here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think all Don's fans owe your family a big thank you as well for that support. We had a fan question this week that I think would fit in pretty well here. What are some pieces of being a head coach that surprised you?
I think like we talked about before a little bit, just how many different variables and different things that I have to kind of keep my eye on throughout the course of the year. And, at this level, when I say this level in college, it's a lot different than the NBA, right? I mean, even though it's just NBA is just one level higher in terms of competition. College, it's a much, much different space. And to run a Division I men's basketball program, fortunately, I have great coaches with me because I just simply don't get to coach as much as I would want because there's other pieces of the program that I have to manage. Kevin Hovde is an incredible coach. He's able to be on the floor with these guys all the time. Mamadou is an incredible coach. Vinny's an incredible coach. I have three guys that are really, really good on the floor. So it allows me, if I need to step away for a little bit to go handle something, from a fundraising standpoint with Joan or, maybe a budget standpoint with Jonathan, I'm able to be attentive to those things, which are really, really important at this level, right? And so I think that's been the biggest thing is, as the associate head coach the first 3 years, I was on the floor every day coaching defense. I was, I got my 30 minutes in practice every day that Kyle let me use however we wanted to do it. I knew what we were going to be hitting on. I knew what drills we were going to do. Bang, bang, bang. And now as a head coach, I still am out there, but now, it's Kevin that's spending 30 minutes with the offense. And then Mamadou and I are teaming up to do the defense. And Vinny's working on the player development. And we have a really good system in place. But it's just you get spread thin. And you got to really find the important things to focus on and just do your best with those.
Sure. You were the 7th youngest head coach in the NC2A last year. Did you ever feel like your youth came into play when you were going up against an older, more quote-unquote experienced coach?
No, I felt really comfortable, to be honest, out there. That's how I was when I played. And, being able to, as a head coach, be standing up and communicating with the guys over the course of the game. I just felt like I was a 6th player out there, except I didn't get to dribble, shoot, or pass it, and didn't get to help out on defense. But, people that watch me close, I try to communicate a lot with our guys, especially in the first half when the defense is in front of us. I like to coach and be involved that way. And I felt more comfortable out on the court than, other parts of the program because it's games. It's what we're used to. And, when just being in that environment, it's something that I think guys that are good coaches, they feel really comfortable out there. And I expected it to be a little different. But even our first scrimmage against Cal Baptist, as soon as the ball went up, it felt pretty normal. And that was something that was a pleasant surprise.
Were there any aspects of head coaching that maybe you hadn't prepared for and where you just had to wing it at some point?
Yeah, for sure. There's always, as prepared as you want to be, I feel like there's always times where you're not. And I'll give you a great example from this past year. One thing that I need to do, and we will, but I need to do a lot better with this next year is our baseline out of bounds plays. Like that was something that I felt so good about what we were doing offensively, and we started scoring the ball so well at the beginning of the year, and defensively, knock on wood, we were pretty solid, and obviously got better as the year went on. But I never felt like we had enough time to drill down on our baseline out of bounds sets, and that's a relatively big part of the game. You get 3 to 5 possessions of those per contest, and that's something that we spend so much time scouting the opponents and scouting what they do and wanting to take away what they do. Offensively, you're building out your half court offense based upon how they guard. It just didn't get enough of our attention, so that would be one thing, execution wise on the court that we'll be better and more prepared for this year. But as prepared as you want to be, there always happens to be times where you just weren't ready for it. And again, that's where we talked about a little bit earlier. You have to have the ability to say, all right, like don't panic. Let's just think about the best way to handle this, and boom, you go with it. And then you let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that applies to both on the court situations and also all those other off the court pieces that you have to work with as a head coach as well.
For sure. 100%.
Now, you mentioned that some of the things like the out-of-bounds play didn't quite go as you drawn it up in the preseason. Was there any part of last year that went exactly as you drew it up in the preseason?
No.
Or pretty close to.
Yeah, I think It's ever changing, right? And I think for the first 10 games of the season, I'd even say the non-conference, it went really according to plan. You know, we thought we had a deeper team. We wanted to take advantage of that by playing a little faster, to get more transition opportunities offensively. And again, use the personnel that we had, try to wear down the opponents. And I thought in the non-conference, it went pretty well that way. You know, it went all the way to us beating Fresno in a great comeback down the stretch, which I think we ended up the non-conference 12-3 or whatever it was, something like that. And, you know, but going into league, that was before Christmas. And then we come back from Christmas and we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. And then we get popped in the mouth 3 games in a row. And so that was probably the biggest moment for me as a first-year head coach. It was, you know, I felt pretty good about what we were doing at Christmas. We were, you know, 11-3, I guess we were, whatever we were before that Harvard game. And then we go in at a home game against a great Harvard team and lose in overtime. A couple of days later, St. Mary's comes in here and pops us, and then we go up to Portland and have one of our worst performances of the year. And so now I'm taking a step back, and now I'm questioning what we're doing. You know, hey, we lost 3 games in a week, where we had only lost 3 games in a month and a half before that. And then, so now you start questioning what you're doing and trying to, all right, well, how are we going to get this thing back on track? And, you know, we just got back to basics and started guarding really hard, practicing really hard, not making excuses for ourselves, and understanding that it was on us as coaches and as players to get it right. And, you know, from that point on, we played really, really well. You know, I think we played like a top 50 team from that point on the rest of the season. So there was a lot of good learning experiences. That was a great one for me. You know, knowing when things aren't going great, you can't panic. You got to just kind of get back on the horse, so to speak, and get things, you know, get toughened back up. But, you know, all those different experiences should give us, you know, more confidence as we go into this next year.
One game or one opponent that you played so well every single time last year was Gonzaga. I mean, you'd hear anecdotally, USF is the team Gonzaga doesn't want to play, right? You know, what did you do in those games that made the Dons so much more competitive against them than, well, anybody?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. Number one, you know, Kevin Hovde has that scout, and he just has done a really, really good job of having a great understanding of what they're trying to do. I think that's the most important thing, is that, you know, Kevin's one of the best basketball minds I've been around. And, again, he can watch tape and cut it up and get a great understanding with the best of them. And so having that understanding of really how they function and, you know, how they try to take advantage of their personnel is the first part. And then implementing a game plan is a completely different thing, because then Kevin and I get on the same page. You know, he tells me, hey, this is what I think they're trying to do offensively. And then as the defensive guy, we're like, hey, I'm getting with him, putting this game plan together. Well, let's try this, this, and this, and let's see if that works. And then most importantly, we have to articulate that to our guys, right? And that's where, you know, and I try to talk about it a lot, but our guys are really, really good in terms of being able to execute. And it's hard. And it's, you know, what we did against Gonzaga was not something that was easy to execute in terms of our defensive game plan. But as you can see from the different games, minus that second half up there, you know, we guarded them for 5 halves better than anybody in the country. And, you know, we just did a really good job of taking away the paint from them. You know, we did a good job of kind of bothering, you know, they have a very aggressive downhill offense where they're always trying to get in the paint. And we did some things that bothered them, you know, and took them out of that downhill mode where they're moving more side to side instead of north and south. And it's the most important thing was just protecting the rim and getting it off the rim. And, you know, up here, unless they go, I think they went 4 for 4 in the second half from 3. If they go 3 for 4, we win that game. And so for me, I think the process was good, even though the result didn't go the way we wanted. And we feel like going into next year, I know our guys will have a lot of confidence every time we play them, knowing we were this close. And, you know, getting over the hump will be awfully important to the growth of this program.
I imagine there aren't a lot of programs that can say that about confidence playing them. That's huge.
Yeah, no, it's what, you know, it's the way it needs to go. You know, I remember when I was my sophomore year, which was my redshirt freshman year at St. Mary's, you know, it was, I think, Randy's 4th year maybe. They hadn't beat him. They hadn't beat him at St. Mary's, but we just went into one game and we had kind of a good group back that we had the year before. And you could just tell it was a little different feeling. that going into that game, we had the confidence to beat them. And honestly, we had that this year. You know, going into that game at home, in the locker room before the game, I thought we were going to win the game. You know, we were up 8 at halftime. At halftime, I thought we were going to win the game. There really wasn't a point throughout the second half where I didn't think we were going to win. And then they just made some big plays down the stretch. You got to tip your cap. They had some really good players. So it's just that's a big step, right? Is having that confidence and just knowing you belong against some of the best in the country.
Were there any off-the-cuff decisions that you made last year, like you mentioned, those things that you really can't prepare for, and a decision that you made that you're going to look forward and say, yeah, we're doing that from now on?
Well, the fouling, you know, is definitely something that we had prepared and discussed it quite a bit. Jonathan Sapphire, myself, Coach Greenfield, who's now the head coach over at SI here in the city. You know, we talked about, but again, as we said, you have to still have the confidence to do it in real time, and that's something that's a lot different than being on, you know, in your office on the whiteboard drawing it up, saying, oh yeah, when we get here, this will be easy to do. You know, when you're talking about fouling somebody and sending them to the foul line for an opportunity for free points, you know, in the heat of a game, it takes some stones. And I think for that BYU game, I think is the one we'll look back at and be really, really glad that we stuck with our processes, because again, you're up 2. I think 98% of the coaches out there would say, hey, we're going to do everything we can to get a stop on this possession and see where it goes. But we knew that the reality was fouling Yoli was the right decision. That was a smart play. And we stuck to our guns, and sure enough, he misses the one-on-one, and we get the ball back, and we end up winning the game. So, you know, just things like that, just not being able to, you know, basically to fall back on our preparation, even though at times your human nature might want to take you elsewhere. I think that's something that will definitely stick with our program for as long as we are here.
Your first year was marked by incredible success. What about last year makes you confident with the ability to move forward, even to higher, greater heights?
Yeah. Well, number one, we were able to retain, you know, our whole staff basically. You know, we lost Coach Greenfield. He's now the head coach at St. Ignatius, which is just an incredible opportunity. And when that happened, you know, he asked my opinion on it. I said, oh man, you got to do it. I mean, that's going to be such a cool opportunity to be able to run your own program at such a great school. You know, I would have felt bad if he stayed here to help us when, you know, passing that up. But other than that, we're bringing everybody back, and it's the continuity piece again. And what gives me great confidence is having these great coaches, as well as returning so many really good players. You know, I think we're going to have one of the best backcourts around. I really do. Between Jamari Khalil and Damari Milstead, those guys are all going to be older, experienced, tough. You know, they've been through it. And, you know, to have 3 guys like that can all handle the ball and play in the backcourt and can score it, guard, it's a huge value add. And then we have some really young, talented guys who I think are ready to step up. So it's going to be a new look team in that way. We lost 4 seniors that were obviously an integral part of our program and getting to where we are. But I'm excited for the opportunity that some of these younger guys will have that didn't have in the past couple of years. So those are a couple of the things that give me a lot of confidence going into next year.
All right, last thing for you. I mentioned earlier, I love stories. We could all use them right now. When you look back at your first year as a head coach, what's your favorite story from that year? It can be on the court, off the court, hybrid of the two, whatever works.
I think just there are a couple games that we had, you know, like the Fresno State game, for example. You know, we play a great defense possession with about a minute and a half to go, and their center makes a 27-foot three with I think it was like 1:25 on the clock or something to put us down 8. And, you know, it's one of those moments where I was standing there thinking, it's just not our night. You know, if that guy's going to throw it in there and, you know, take us down 8. But when you have a guy like Khalil Shabazz who just came right back down and made a 3 and gave us some life, and then we get a steal, score, stop, score. We tie the game with 25 seconds or 30 seconds. And then we go get a great stop, force a turnover, and then Khalil makes a great individual play to win the game. I mean, that emotional high is something that's really, really hard to describe. You know, being in the locker room, soon, you know, how we operate is our players get in the locker room, and then our coaching staff meets outside the locker room for a minute or two to get on the same page before we go in and talk to our team, both at halftime and after the game. And, you know, spend a minute with our coaches kind of just hugging and, high-fiving each other and just being like, wow, how did we win that game? And bust in the locker room. And then it turns into a water fight between the players and the coaches, and we're all tackling each other and dogpiling and tossing the chairs around and just having, I'm telling you, that camaraderie and that experience with those guys, it's just something that you can't measure. And I think, our photographer, Christina Lum, she was able to capture some of that from the BYU game, which is a very, very similar moment. I walked out of there like I had just went through a car wash. I was fully soaked. My watch broke, and I'll tell you what, there was nothing I was happier doing than replacing that watch for the cost of winning that BYU game. But just those highs and those lows, and just having those experiences are something that you'll never forget.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing those. That's hopefully more to come of those this year.
Absolutely.
Well, Coach, that's all the questions I have for you this week. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else about your first year that you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, no, I think it was awesome. And I really appreciate everybody, obviously from the administration, from, Joan and her belief in myself and our program, Father Paul, Charlie Cross, Bill Cartwright, I could go on. And then equally as important was the support from our fans. I'm sure we had people that were supporters that were, wondering how I would do or how our program would do with me leading, and, hoping that they would get somebody a little more experienced to come in here and lead the program. But, I'm hoping and I'm hopeful that after the success that we had last year and the type of kids that we have in our program, that we have their full confidence, moving forward. And I think we do. But I appreciate their willingness to support us and be in the stands for our guys, which honestly is the most important thing. I'm going to be all right no matter what. And I don't mind if people are critical of some of the decisions I make as a head coach, but, supporting our student athletes and understanding, how much they care about the university and being ambassadors for the school and supporting them by being in the stands, that means more to me than anything. And as long as they support the student athletes, then I'm good. So, we're just thankful for our opportunities that we have here as coaches and players, and are appreciative of the support that we have. And we look forward to continuing to make everybody proud.
Absolutely. And we look forward to you doing that. Awesome. This has been the Golden Hour with USF men's basketball head coach Todd Golden. For Coach Golden, I'm Vinnie Longo. Thank you so much for joining us. Watch again Fridays at noon and catch up on all of our episodes on Don's Athletics YouTube channel. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and go Dons.